please welcome to the stage Dr. Eduardo Padrón of Miami-Dade College and George Logothetis of the Libra Group.
Today I have the privilege to engage in a conversation, not only with a friend, but someone whose name is synonymous with Concordia and the biggest believer and supporter of the organization. George, yesterday you reminded me as we were talking that all the good work that we did together during the last few years, especially when I was president of Miami-Dade College, which included bringing Concordia Americas to Miami. And I'm very proud of that. This is the right place. This is the capital of the Americas. I think the audience would very much like to hear the genesis of Concordia from your point of view, and especially that well-known meeting with President Uribe in Medellin, Colombia, nearly 10 years ago. So will you share with us some of that?
Of course. First of all, good morning, everyone. Calimera, buenos dias. Eduardo, you have been an inspiration to me and to many people for many years. Thank you for everything that you do and will do. So, yes, the genesis of Concordia. So we have to go back to Genesis of Concordia Americas.
Americas, yeah.
Yeah, so you have to go back to 2016, August. And I'm on a plane with Matt Swift, Maria Correa, Argiro, and a few others, and we are heading to Medellin, Colombia. We get off the plane, and we're standing at the airport, and all of a sudden we see from afar a convoy of 10 cars, trucks coming towards us. My God, what have we done? Out gets President Uribe. George, welcome to Colombia. So this was quite a welcome. It was the first trip I made to the beautiful country of Colombia. And we get in the car with Uribe and drive to his house with a security convoy, with police stopping the cars. And I mean, it was like being inside Clear and Present Danger, but like for real. Without the people attacking us, thank God. So I arrive at the President Uribe's house, who, by the way, in my opinion, is being terribly treated right now, because he's a man that turned the course of history of his country. He gave himself for the betterment of his people, and it's just unfair, right? What's going on? Be that as it may. I'm sitting in his house, in a chair, and Matt is on my right, and then Maria's there, and Argiro's there, and there's like 15 leaders of Colombia sitting in front of me. And each one introduces themselves, and one says, I don't know, I'm the head of the largest fruit company, and then another, I'm the head of the biggest university, and you know, remember, I just got off a plane, off a convoy, and like, you know, where am I? And then it gets to President Uribe, and he says, George, I say, yes, Presidente. He says, what are you going to do in Colombia? So I'm like, Mr. President, it's always good when you can address someone because you gain 3 seconds to think, right? Mr. President, we're going to do, and I'm buying seconds, right, before I can respond to him. We're going to do 3 things in Colombia. He's like, 3 things? What am I going to say, right? Literally, this is how it was. I said, 1, Mr. President, and again, I'm trying to purchase 1 second at a time. We're going to bring Concordia to Colombia. Oh, George. All the business leaders and the education leaders were happy. 2, we're going to bring Seleni to Colombia. And 3, we're going to bring our internship program to Colombia. So where are we today? Today we brought Concordia to Bogota, 2017, 2018. Then we met, and you kindly offered to host Concordia at MDC when you were the president, and so began the story. And a nice way to end the question, I was in Colombia in December, and I was given the privilege to launch former President Duque's foundation with a keynote speech, which I did with great pride and privilege. But before the speech and before the event, I get taken into a room in the foundation, and in the room there are 32 former and future interns of our organization. So those words to President Uribe and those leaders of Colombia that I met in August of 2016 produced a lot of goodness?
Well, I know a little bit about that history, and I've always been impressed with the impact you have had, not only in Colombia, but so many of the other places that you visit and where you do investments. I'm glad this is not a political conversation, because I see that I'm sitting on the right and you're sitting on the left. But I'm going to accept that for now. But yesterday, I was privileged to be here for all the panels and participate in some of them. And I found them to be very thoughtful and provocative. And the discussion centered around challenges, but also the opportunities in Latin America, especially in the area of investments, which I know is of great interest to you. You have built a very impressive organization. Libra Group has 60 subsidiaries. You are in close to 60 countries around the world. That's impressive. And you do work in so many different areas, from real estate to renewable energy, hospitality. And I've been hearing rumors that you're also doing work in the space area. I need to know more about that, because we haven't had a chance to talk about that. But I think the question that I think is important here, because after all this is Concordia Americas, is what brought your interest to Latin America? What was the motivation? What did you find there that gave you the thought of opportunities?
Well, thank you, Eduardo. You're too kind, and it sounds so glamorous until you try and do it, and then it's not so glamorous. And it's important to state that it was a team effort. There's many good people across many good countries that have contributed to what we have built. We have done it together as an ecosystem. So my father used to run a shipping company, and the South feeds the North. Mm-hmm. So that's how I got to start to learn about Latin America and understanding the cultures and also the cultural similarities between the culture that we come from, the Greek culture. It's very similar. The Latins and the Greeks are very similar in so many ways. The first Libra Group investments in Latin America were done in Argentina in 2004. And we sent Raul Gonzalez, who I just saw before. 20 years later, he's still here. And he went to look at investments in Argentina. Why Argentina? Because at the time, Argentina was going through a financial crisis. Mm-hmm. Because wearing the investment hat, it was cheap. So it was a good entry point. And that's how our, let's say, love affair began in Latin America. Today, we operate across many, many countries. We have renewable energy projects in Colombia, in Panama, in Dominican Republic. We have real estate in Argentina. Ultimately, it's, we try and govern our group, our life, our ecosystem with values. As I said the other day at an aviation conference, not aircraft values, human values. And we share a lot of common values with people from Latin America. People, at the end of the day, want to be more than. Most people want to be more than. Most people want in life to become, or be given the opportunity to become, the best version of themselves. That is what America gave to you. That is what America has given to me. That is what America has given to many people. We're both immigrants. You came as a 15-year-old kid from Cuba. I came as a 29-year-old Greek boy from on a 747. But the principle's the same, that we came here to find a better life. And talking about the link between the United States and Latin America, I believe that America needs to be more engaged, more proactively engaged. American leadership is missed within Latin America. But what we've been able to do is use the IP that we have here in the United States and transmit it through to our subsidiaries and operations that we do in Latin America. And it's transmitting ideas at the end of the day. It's transmitting empowerment. It's transmitting a state of human governance that, again, is encouraging people to be more than. And so, you know, these let's say, also Greek values, I would say. In some ways, you know, we try and live by older values, but be grateful for being here in the United States, where we have the opportunity to be the best version that we can become.
Well, you often say we don't do easy, in referring to, you know, to the Libra Group. And what you just said is reflective. It's reflective of that. And this organization that you lead has always been willing to take novel approaches in Latin America, and especially partnerships. Mm-hmm. And I think it will be good for you to be more specific about some of those, especially the work that you do with the Greenwood Energy JV, with the indigenous people in the area, and also the University of Panama. That's, I think, is a great example that I think many companies that are considering investing in Latin America, or are actually today in Latin America, could follow and could learn a lot from it. So if you would kindly share with us your experience with that.
So with specificity to Greenwood, so Greenwood is one of the clean energy companies of our organization. First of all, we don't do easy. We never set out to go down the road more traveled. Mm-hmm. It's the road less traveled. We have one shot at life. That's it. What are you going to do with it, right? At the end of life, are you going to say, I lived every maximum to every single day, every single second? Or you're right. We don't do easy. And I do say this all the time. That's different to making it look easy. As I said the other day, it's hard, but the trick is to make it look easy. So going to Greenwood, first of all, it starts with, again, speaking to people in a straightforward, respectful, collaborative, humane way. We are the human race. We're not the inhuman race. I think, again, this goes to the sort of, a lot of human souls have been captured by the invisible algorithms that have divided us. Mm-hmm. The more technologized the society, the more polarized that society becomes. And I see that, having gone to societies that are less technologized and then others that are more. So Greenwood Energy has, let's say, many projects across Colombia, Panama, the DR, but let's say one of the landmark projects is a joint venture, it's a partnership with the Arhuacos tribe, which is an indigenous tribe in the Sierra Nevada mountains in Colombia. It took us 6 years to gain their confidence. We were able, I believe, to succeed because some very smart people were patient, thoughtful, and also espoused the more ancient values. So it's like we've discussed a long time, many times, philanthropy, philanthropos. It is giving without expecting to get. Less giving money to receive your name on a building. And so, you know, they are preserving 120,000 hectares of pristine land that they are going to acquire over the next 20 years through the PPA, the power purchase agreement that is being put in place. You know, you know where the Arhuacos leaders are today? Today, right now, they're in Greece. And they are in Greece. We put a sort of cultural exchange together where they have traveled to Greece and they are espousing their ancient values to ultimately the land that my family comes from. We have another business with the University of Panama, which is a 40 megawatt utility scale solar facility that is ready in 1 month. It took us 9 years. Patience, virtue, speak to people. You know, don't try and impose one's beliefs on people. There are certain, let's say, shared common values that apply the whole world over. But cultures are proud. And I think a lot of the time it's easy to make the mistake of we know better. Maybe not. But talking to people at their level, never talking down to anyone, always being respectful, I think it's those values that have enabled us to do what we've done, especially in Latin America. And then I would also say it's going back to the point of transmitting IP from the United States, intellectual property, to act as an enabler, to empower the communities that we work with. So we are launching, in 1 month from today, we're cutting the ribbon of the first clean energy facility that is going to power University de Panama in the continent. And that makes us proud. But it wasn't easy.
Well, I believe that trust is such an important factor in being able to develop these partnerships. And it takes time. And I smile every time I meet a successful person and the person next to me says, "Oh, he's so lucky. He's so fortunate." And when the reality is it has taken a lot of work and effort and sacrifice for people to get to that level of success. And I see that reflected very much in the work that you have done. Going to a place like that, seeing people who have no clean energy, have no drinking potable water, and doing something about it and working with them and being patient enough to be able to bring all the elements together to do that is really commendable. I also know that every time you travel on business, you take the time to visit places that a lot of other people would not go, would not even dare go. And I know that that's part of your philosophy, that's part of what you believe in. And I know, for example, that last December, you took a group of your colleagues to a place called Las Mercedes, which I happen to know by chance, in the Dominican Republic. And you, in there, in coordination with, I think, what's the name of the NGO?
Nature Power.
Right. You did all these things. And maybe you want to expand a little bit in that concept.
So, first of all, Eduardo, in the world that we live in, which is, I think, progressively and slowly dehumanizing, I think it's very important to be proactive in searching and preserving our humanity. So that's why I do that. And we do that. That's point one. Point two, yes, we went to Las Mercedes. It was a 200-mile journey. I was in the Dominican Republic in December, and we visited a village of people who have very little by our standards, but very much by their standards. What is everything? What is nothing? If you want to see humanity on display, if you want to see joy, community, unity, go to Las Mercedes. And we were invited by this organization, Nature Power. And Nature Power, I know they're here in the, oh, there you are. You see Raquel, Jefferson, and Juan. And what are they doing? They are empowering communities that have very little to be bold and to bring clean energy solutions to provide electricity, water. So, you know, here in the West, you turn on the tap and out comes the water, right? These are freedoms that we were granted by those who
Clean water.
Clean water. The people who came before us granted them to us. We did not earn them, right? So, you know, it reminded me, as I was coming here, I was thinking of the story of the little engine that could. You know, this is what it reminded me when I went to Las Mercedes. This is the story of the little engine that could is the story of a little engine that had to go up a mountain to carry toys for the children. It's a very famous story. Maybe many people know the story, a few don't. We taught our children this. And it is about, I believe I can. So the big engines were going past the little engine, not helping the little engine go up the mountain. The little engine said, I'm going to do it. I can go up the mountain. So here you have a community that has suffered for generations And all of a sudden, because of the good work of these people and the organization they represent, the pride and the way they were standing when we visited was one of the most moving things that I saw and felt last year. And if we live exclusively within the confines of the privilege of the Western world, we never expose ourselves to the suffering souls of the world, then our perspective gets diminished. And one of my favorite sayings is, the greatest liability from within a tribe is the lack of perspective from outside that tribe. So that's why we go out into the field and see, but also feel. The feelings will never lie. What you see and what you hear can be changed, right? Perception can shift.
Totally agree.
But the way you feel, the way people stand, the pride they show. So here you have Marissa, my friend Marissa, who lives in a very small home in Las Mercedes. But she built it. She earned the money to build it. She brought us into the house with pride. So at the same point in time, I can go to a billionaire's house in New York City who has no pride, no self-accomplishment, not a little engine that could, the big engine that couldn't. And then you have Marissa on the ground, full of pride. That's humanity, right?
You know, when you talk about Marissa, it reminds me of how many people, especially top executives of company, talk about philanthropy. You don't talk about philanthropy. You practice philanthropy. And that's a good example. And that's why I think those principles that also guide Concordia are so important, and why I have always admired you and seen with my own eyes some of the things that you have done. But when we were backstage, you mentioned to me that you recently went back to Colombia with your entire family.
Yes. 4
children and even your 6-month-old baby.
Yes.
And you said something that stayed with me, and that was that experience changed the life of your family from within. And I'm sure you were saying that because of your experience with Granitos, the De La Paz Foundation in Cartagena, I guess it is.
Yes.
And I think that's another example and something that I think the audience would be interested in learning about.
Thank you, Eduardo. So you know Nitzia, clearly my better half. I was showered with many blessings when I met my wife. I'm proud to say it, I feel it, I say it every day. That's a great blessing of life. I got married to Nitzia when I met her. What is marriage? So let's start there. Nitzia is Latina, half Panamanian, half Greek. We went through a difficult time as a family. I had some very, very serious issues. Is the husband going to live? Is he not going to live? Am I going to have to bring the children up alone? Am I not? That trauma, unprocessed trauma can lead to self-righteous anger, right? Processed trauma, so how has Nitzia processed what she endured? Well, one way is reconnecting with her Latin roots. One way is visiting Granitas de Paz. What is Granitas de Paz? Granitas de Paz is a foundation run by a leader called Martha, set up by another leader called Elena many years ago. It's in a very poor part of Cartagena. And I went there a few weeks ago, with former President Duque's family, with my family. So we went with all our children. Like, you're going to see how fortunate we are. We're going to live it. And we get taken from room to room. It's an organization that basically helps right the lives of young people who were born into poverty. And I don't mean poverty, money. Born into total poverty of the soul. Sexual abuse, violence, drugs, shooting people, having 13-year-olds with guns, firing at other 13-year-olds with guns 2 blocks away. Gang violence. I mean, you've heard it all before. So that community was changed because a lady called Elena 20 years ago set up the foundation, and because a lady called Marta today runs it. And I'll give you one story. So we go from room to room and we're explaining the work of the foundation. And then we're in another room, and there's maybe 50 people in the room. And 5 young men and women stand up and tell us their stories. Now, remember, they're in front of the former president, they're in front of 2 families, they're in front of myself, they're in front, it's not easy to be vulnerable. But at the end of the day, real strength is about being able to show real vulnerability. So they were strong. And they stand up and they say, well, Mr. President, Mr. George, I was a gang member. I killed people. Now I'm reformed. And they gave their stories, very emotional. I couldn't help myself. And I said, listen, in front of all these people, I said, let me tell you all something. You are the real heroes of this world. You didn't have a second chance. You didn't have a first chance. But look at you today. So I said, I'm going to invite you to the launch of It Takes Courage, which is a global foundation for courage that we have helped support and grow, which is launching in Panama in May of next month. And it turns out that they're going to get an award. So these are children, man. There was a 15-year-old girl who was from Venezuela who stood tall, but she came from great pain. So what are we doing? We're using IP from the United States, care, empowerment, thought, because you've got to care, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't do anything to help people if you don't care. It starts with that. And they're going to get an award. And I thought to myself, as I was talking to them, I thought, should I invite them to Concordia, New York? That's too much. It's too much for them. Should I invite them to Concordia, Miami? It's also too much. I thought Panama, because Panama is something they can relate to. It's still Latin. And so you're going to have, in 3 weeks' time, these 5 young kids who came from hell, Eduardo. Something we can't appreciate in the Western world. Mm-hmm. And they are going to be given an award for being courageous. Doesn't that say it all?
That says it all.
There we go.
And, really appreciate your sharing that with all of us, because it's very indicative of what the world needs more than anything else today: compassion, empathy, support, and really, understanding that people are people everywhere who are different, but the needs are the same. And we can do little things and bigger things, but everyone has the opportunity to make a difference in life.
I could not agree with you more, and that's why we're friends. I will say one last thing, and I'll just say something that I realized having dinner with the president of Panama 4 years ago, just came out of my mouth. And it was at a time when I was starting to recover from chaos. It's a secret. Hope is free. Now, we're not wired to be hopeful. As human beings, evolutionarily, if we were wired to be hopeful, we'd have lost to the lions or something, and there'd be 2 lions sitting here. Mm. We're wired to be fearful, but we have the power to shift how we think. And the last vestige of human freedom and human independence, libertad, is to elect how you respond to something. We are wired, we're predisposed to be afraid, to be fearful, but we can choose, and we can elect to be hopeful. Hope is free. And that's how I try and live my life. It doesn't mean I don't feel despair and anger, and of course, we're human, right? But the de facto, the short circuit is those 3 words. Mm.
Well, thank you for sharing those experiences with us, because those are the same experiences that I think motivate and guide, are the principles that guide the work of Concordia. Yes. And you have a lot of followers here.
Man.
And thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
And for your time this morning.
Gracias.
Let's give George a big round of applause.